And thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Jacqueline Ackerman. I direct the Women's Philanthropy Institute. We are housed at the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. And I'm really excited today to walk you through our newest research, the 2025 Women and Girls Index. So at the Women's Philanthropy Institute, our mission is to conduct rigorous research and then share it out, talking about how and why women give and all of the other ways in which gender shapes philanthropy. Our goal is to turn that knowledge into action and equip all sorts of audiences, funders, nonprofits, the public, and other researchers, of course, with evidence that can inform decisions and ultimately strengthen the sector. And we are today talking about a cornerstone of this work, the Women and Girls Index, sometimes called the WGI. It's part of the Equitable Giving Lab, and that is our school's broader initiative to understand charitable giving to a number of under-resourced communities. Right now, that includes women and girls with the WGI. We also have the LGBTQ plus index to understand giving to LGBTQ plus causes and organizations, and communities of color to understand giving to organizations specifically serving those communities. And also do want to flag, we have in the next month coming up our first Military and Veterans Community Index. So if any of those communities are of interest to you, I really encourage you to visit equitablegivinglab.org to learn more. The Women and Girls Index tracks charitable giving to nearly 60,000 U.S. charitable organizations that are dedicated to women and girls. So we have a clear picture of what support looks like and kind of a landscape view across the entire sector. The index not only helps us understand giving patterns, but it also complements our other research, and you can see some examples of that on the slide. We have in particular our Women Give series that explore a variety of subjects, anything from household giving trends to donor motivations, and broadly just the role of identity and values in shaping philanthropy. And so we're really proud of our library of research, and together these resources, we hope, help practitioners, donors, and others to make data-informed decisions. In terms of background about the Women and Girls Index, we first launched it in 2019, and today we are really proud to release our 7th annual edition. The Women and Girls Index from 2025 spans over a decade of data, and it covers giving from 2012 to 2023 across 57,165 organizations, and really thrilled to have organizations across the country from every state represented in our data. For the first time this year, we were able to add 2 new years of data. So we have data from 2022 and 2023. This is kind of the first time we've been able to do that, and that reflects our faster access to IRS e-file data from nonprofits and improved data processing. So, there's still a lag. 2023 is still, nearly 2 years ago. However, compared to most nonprofit data, this is really quick and providing our most up-to-date view yet of how giving to women's and girls organizations is shifting in response to broader social and economic changes. I will walk us through 3 main findings from this year's research. The first one, as you can see on your slide, is that in 2022, giving to women's and girls organizations surpassed 2% of total U.S. charitable giving for the very first time. And that, I'll just say on a personal note, as someone who's presented this data every year since 2019, it has gotten a little tiring to every year say less than 2%, less than 2%. So this is a huge milestone that we're so thrilled to see. Specifically, giving peaked in 2022 at 2.18% of total US charitable giving. It did move back a little bit to 2.04% in 2023. And in real dollars, that is more than $11 billion annually going to organizations serving women and girls. In 22, it was 11.9 billion and 11.4 billion in 2023. I do want to note, however, that this spike in 2022 of giving to charitable organizations serving women and girls occurs amid a decline in overall charitable giving. 2022 was a bit of a rough year for all charitable organizations, so we should view this milestone with some caution, but I do want to make sure that we acknowledge that crossing this 2% threshold is a really meaningful marker of progress. Our second key finding essentially answers the question, well, so why? Why did giving to women's and girls organizations grow so dramatically? And in short, it's reproductive health. These organizations drove a lot of that recent growth. Giving to reproductive health organizations increased nearly 40% in 2022. And as many of those of you in the audience know, that really coincides with the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision. It came out in mid-2022, and the resulting surge in attention to these causes really moved giving to reproductive health organizations up very dramatically. That 40% growth in 2022 was followed by a 10% decline in 2023. That said, even with that growth over the 2-year period of 2021 to 23, we saw reproductive health organizations net gain 24% in charitable support over those years. Even when we take out reproductive health and exclude them from our analyses, giving to other women's and girls organizations still rose 10% in 2022, and overall over 2021 to 23 rose 7%. And so we are seeing growth across the sector, though it's more modest in scale when you don't consider reproductive health. I do want to shout out some unusually large unrestricted gifts from major donors during this period as well. For example, Mackenzie Scott's giving strategy in 2022 and 23 included substantial support to organizations aligned with all sorts of issues, but especially gender issues. And so many leaders used this giving to expand their services and stabilize their operations. All right, our third key finding is a bit of a reality check. Essentially, inflation and funding volatility, dampened real growth. So normally we present our results in nominal dollars, which means they are not adjusted for inflation. Normally, that's not a problem. We're just adding 1 year of data at a time. Inflation doesn't factor in as much one year to another. 2022 and 2023 were not normal in terms of inflation. And so we did do this adjustment just to see kind of what difference that would make in the numbers. And as you can see from the screen, it turns out it's a big difference. So when adjusted for inflation, giving in real dollars to women's and girls organizations actually fell about 2% between 2021 and 2023. And when you take out women's health and reproductive health organizations, which is the strongest subtype of women's and girls organizations, that giving actually fell about 5%. And those declines were concentrated in some specific areas: women and girls education, women's groups that also served women like giving circles, and then general purpose organizations that don't really fit in any of our other subcategories. So this doesn't necessarily reflect the reality of every organization, but we did want to make sure that when organizations see these, record-breaking findings, they understand that the reality on the ground may not match. And even for reproductive rights organizations that have grown so dramatically, the need grew as well. And so it doesn't necessarily mean, everyone's growing, everything's doing great, no downsides. This is growth that's really in response to growing needs. And so a bit of a caution. Do want to also add the point that many women's and girls nonprofits rely heavily on government grants. About 20% on average of women's and girls organizations' revenues are coming from government grants. And that's about double the proportion for organizations from other categories that are not WGI organizations. And this leaves organizations more exposed to shifts in public funding, especially the ones that we have seen lately. And that adds another layer of uncertainty to the funding picture. All right, I will just share that taken together. These findings really highlight both momentum and challenges. And so we are seeing encouraging signs of growth, visibility, investment in women and girls, surpassing the 2% milestone, and increased support in key areas alongside persistent funding gaps and inflation-related pressure on real budgets. So a real good news, not as good news sort of situation. At the Women's Philanthropy Institute, we see our role as ensuring that the research is available and visible so that folks like you, funders, practitioners, can make informed choices that strengthen the field. We will share the full report and the searchable database in a follow-up email, as well as in the chat. And I realize we've got plenty of time left to do some Q&A. Please continue to add your questions in the Q&A box, and I will do my best to answer them in the time that we have left. I'm seeing from the Q&A, does our research only cover the US? And unfortunately, that is true for the Women and Girls Index. We do have a really strong methodology that we can share with other folks, and we have had a few inquiries here and there from researchers who do want to duplicate this in other settings. The problem is that other countries do not tend to have as robust a data collection mechanism. And so in the US, we have charitable organizations that have to file certain tax forms every year. They are digitized and they are made publicly available. And so all of that really contributes to us being able to get the data, get it quickly, and do this analysis. And so when that infrastructure, let's say, is not available in other countries, it does prevent us from doing that research. So it would be great if we could do that for other countries. I would really love that. But at this time, the Women and Girls Index is only about organizations that are registered in the US. I will note that there's a small subset of those organizations that are based in the US but operate internationally. And so if you read the research report, you will see that under Women and Girls International. I am seeing a question about, has this data been segmented by region of the US? I will say no, but it could. We do have the data for where these organizations are located. One issue is that it's a picture of where the funds are going, right? This is data about organizations. It's not necessarily data about donors. You know, you might have a lot of donors in one area that are giving to national organizations or to organizations in a locale that's different. Like, think about when the Dobbs decision happened and you had a lot of donors who were really focused on certain states that had more restrictions than others as a result of that decision. So that is something that's definitely of interest, and we have the data, and that would be something that we can look at, certainly. I'm seeing a question about the differences between older and younger women donors and how do organizations appeal to women donors. And I really love that someone in the Q&A is seeding a question that is about all of our other research. So in addition to looking at giving to women's and girls causes, the bulk of our research really deals with women as donors and how can women donors express their philanthropy in ways that are meaningful to them? How can nonprofits and fundraisers connect with women donors in ways that are meaningful to them? And we know that women are motivated differently than men to give. We know that they have different patterns and trends in their giving. And we know that they're looking for different things from nonprofit organizations when they do give. So women tend to be motivated to give out of empathy or altruism. They're really focused on the end result, on who is benefiting from their dollars. And they're also more generous from a lot of different definitions. They are more likely to give than men. Um, Holding other factors constant, they are giving higher amounts. And they're really driving giving in really interesting ways. For example, giving circles are far, far and away include women as their members, and we have all women groups, majority women groups, etc. And so those are kind of the basic differences between men and women and how organizations can appeal to women donors, telling stories, focusing on that recipient, and simply not doing things that women don't like. So talking to them, not just calling up their husbands and expecting that, perhaps if their husband is the breadwinner, that they are making all of the decisions, especially about charitable giving. That is a huge issue. Um, Offering benefits to giving, like, if you give us this much, we'll put your name on our building. That's simply not a thing that appeals to most women donors. And it's kind of a you know, way that a lot of people seek to acknowledge major donors. And so there are plenty of ways that we can connect with women donors in a better way than the status quo right now. I'll just briefly address the generational issue. Older and younger women donors do give in different ways. They give to different causes a little bit. Older women donors are more likely to give to religious causes and houses of worship, for example. I will say that younger donors, kind of all genders, are really doing interesting things with their philanthropy. I hear a lot from folks in the sector who are like, young people, they don't give. And we do have research, not necessarily from the Women's Philanthropy Institute, but from our larger Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, that talks about younger donors. And it's not that they're not generous, it's that they are generous in unique ways that we haven't really seen before. And so, as an example, younger donors connect with specific causes. They're much more likely to say, for example, I really care about animal welfare, and they seek out opportunities to support that. And it doesn't really matter if it's this 501c3 or that one or something totally different. They don't necessarily have loyalty to an organization, they have loyalty to causes. And so it's really important for us to kind of meet those donors where they are and help them figure out how they can contribute in ways that are really meaningful to them. Would really encourage you to, I can talk all day, but I will kind of close if there are not a ton of other questions. I do want to, let's see, there's a question about how funders might interpret the dip that we saw. So 2022, kind of a record giving to women's and girls organizations, and then scaling back just a little bit in 2023. Is that cause for concern? Is that kind of expected variation? So I will say a data point is not a trend. It's cause for a little bit of caution, but we simply don't know yet. We don't know if 2024, 2025, we're going to see it go back up. We're going to see it stay right along 2%. We're going to see it go down a little bit. It'll be really interesting to see in the future what that looks like. What I take away from that kind of spike in 2022 is that we have been talking again for 7 years about how giving is below 2% of total charitable giving, and what will it take to have it grow. And over the 10 years of data plus that we have, it's growing like really, really slowly. And then to see in 1 year, it's just up to 2.18%, really drives home the point that when people are motivated, change can happen, and it can happen really quickly. And so I think to me, it's a question of how do you maintain that momentum, and go beyond this kind of, crisis giving, urgency based giving when something happens culturally or societally that we want to respond to with giving. All right, well, I will close us out here. I'm so grateful for all of you who have joined us, and just want to shout out the Women and Girls Index, the research, my team that has supported with this. The Women and Girls Index I love. It is a tool that helps us see where giving is strong, where gaps remain, and what we do with that knowledge is up to us. It might affect your giving, it might affect how you're making the case for your organization, but do encourage you to take action using this data. I will also say, please be on the lookout for updates from the Equitable Giving Lab for our inaugural Military and Veterans Community Index. It's going to be released in just a few weeks in early November ahead of Veterans Day. And finally, thank you so much for joining today and for your continued support in advancing women's and girls philanthropy. Thank you.